It's that moment where I see, has it gone live? Yeah, live, I think so. At least that's what it looks like. Although I can't hear myself. Oh, I need to put the volume up. Oh, that's more like it. The only problem is, of course, now I'm listening to myself about 3 seconds behind myself, so that's a little bit confusing when you hear yourself in your own ear. But here we go. I've got these, which are from SCIFI Precision. I've just hit the mic, so you may have just heard the mic go there. They're MDF, they smell very much like burnt wood at the moment. And they do a range in 15mm scale. I think they also do these in 28mm as well. Industrial. So this is the industrial factory, and then this is the smaller, what's that, industrial office style warehouse. And I'm building a new train layout because basically I'm developing the new Grunts game, and for the book I want a lot of really nice detailed buildings and train items visible. So I'm going to be starting those soon, and without further ado I shall switch down to the web view so you can take a look at that. Phew, that's better. I just had to turn the sound off. Just an annoying feature there that when you're doing this and then your voice is about 4 seconds behind off the live stream, you end up listening to yourself more than you listen to what you're doing. So now you may be able to notice that I'm talking naturally instead of that hideous delay where I end up going, what did I just say? So this is the SCIFI website, and they've got a 15mm section here and industrial, and that is where I got these from. They have a lot of these, and I have to comment on this now, and I'm sure it will change at some point soon. However, there's an awful lot, obviously driven by market demand, there's an awful lot of World War II. What can I say? They're just bungalows, aren't they? I mean, they have every bungalow type possible, every street type possible. And you see this from all the various different ranges that sort of went along with the World War II sort of big push in the last 10 years or so. But there are, I mean, there's some nice ones, but they're just generally, it's easy to do, isn't it? Like a Vietnam War shack, a square box style residential home from World War II period, anywhere from about 1920 up to, well, even, you know, my house looks like this now. So I mean, any period, modern period, you can use these in, which is great. But they don't really like shout sci-fi, do they? These ones, I think you could use, you know, some of the Vietnam War ones. You could use them in shanties. You could use them as a more rundown shanty area in sci-fi. And this is what I mean again by these straight sort of street zones. So here we have the factory large, which I've picked up, so you get to see what it looks like there. Built. It's I think I haven't opened the pack yet. I'm going to do that on camera, but I think it must have some glass windows or something. Or when I say glass, I mean plastic of some kind to go in the top. And there's some nice detailing on there too. So my idea is I'm going to pull all these together and make modular terrain areas. And the idea being, of course, that I will get a kind of set of city block kind of squares that I can put down with different buildings on and put them into different configurations. So with 15mm in the past when I've done terrain boards, so where could I go where I could show one of my terrain boards? Well, I could fire up YouTube. I won't play a video within a video, that would be a bit weird. But I've made pretty much static layout on the basis that I was taking them to shows and I just wanted something easy to put down and in one place. But now I'm coming to the Grunts version 2 and I'm about to start work on the book and the layout. I'm kind of looking and I'm thinking I'd like something a bit more modular that I can move around for different events and then reuse the terrain in the future as well. So that's the factory. The other item I've got is I've got 2 of these office-based ones, and I've got one of these factory power rooms. And what I want to do with them is basically sci-fi them up. So although again this looks, I mean, it could be any time in the last 200 years or so, although the steel around the side sort of dates it a little bit. I'm going to try and sci-fi them up with modules on the roof, masts and various piping and other bits and pieces. So yeah, that's it. That's the actual view. If I can get myself back down to the table view with a couple of different button presses. Right, there you go. So here we are. Turning around the right way. Is around the right way? They come in this big pack, obviously. Quite detailed looking instructions. I'll start with the one that I've opened already, so we can have a look at that and the size of it, and I shall get those ones out of the way for now. So, dang it, Warm Gamer. Hello, Jay. Love that laser cut NDS melt. Yeah, I really like it as well, but my wife hates it, so if I bring any home from a show, I can't open it anywhere in a kind of shared public space within the house. It has to be in my room for that smell of burnt wood. Hello from Columbus. Hello, Tom. Hi. Very nice. Looks as they are looking as they are now. Yeah, I know, Eric. Yeah, they do look quite nice as they are and clean, don't they? But I think I'm going to add lots of extra bits. So here it is in front of me. All I've done is started to pop bits out, which you can see where the things have come out. I had a quick go at this on Saturday morning. I was opening it up. So essentially in the MDF wood, I mean, this is a very simple one. I think this one is like a £7 one, so well under the sort of $10 mark. And you can see it has a tower piece on the side, which the instructions show you how to put together. If I bring that in, yeah, you've got the long tower section, and then you've got the box beside it. It just so happens that the side of the building, for structural purposes, in terms of the MDF, it has the long section into that side panel, which just gives it a little bit of extra structural strength, doesn't it? So just again, base build, it has these holes around the edge, which allows the walls to slot in. Actually, that's the roof section, isn't it, I think? Yes, that's the roof section. So you get grooves on this side down here, slot that in, and then you do the same on this side panel. Which way around is that going? Small piece, small piece. I'm not going to be able to put this together, obviously, without any kind of glue or anything to hand, but that's the sort of idea. You obviously get the tail on there, and there's one little neat section on the front, which is this small, more card based. It's a piece of cardboard, isn't it, in there? And in fact, the cardboard allows you to flex the door ever so slightly as well, as you can see. So that sits behind there and gives you some detail. You could leave that open, couldn't you? But I mean, I'm going to put it on with that detail there. Yeah, and then obviously that bit, in terms of strength again, that bit with the grooves fits around the railings on the top, so that you get that sort of, again, boxes everything in neatly. Oh look, I managed to get it together. So as if by magic, it's starting to come together. So it's quite nice that you can dry build this. I've had a lot of experience with the foreground models, of which I've got hundreds around. I should grab one. And what oh crash! What I always like to sort of shout about these ones, which is the foreground models. Obviously, this is medieval, but they do this double skinning technique, which you find most other manufacturers don't bother with that. But that's, again, it's difference in cost, isn't it? You pay a lot more for these guys. They do a 15mm sci-fi range as well, but that gives you an idea of the quality of the foreground. Is that you're having, essentially, you've got two skins. They even have two skins on the floorboard side as well. So you typically go into a side panel, and then you'd put in a floor section, and along the edge here, interior detail in colour. So yeah, that's foreground for you, and they do fantastic kits. And again, like on the outside, you're putting every single individual one of those panels into there. But yeah, I mean, quick and dirty is this sort of, well, it's not dirty, it's a clean approach, but it doesn't have as many layers and skins, but that's why you pay a lot less and it's a smaller size. Yeah, so that's the individual industrial tower unit, and there it is built. Yeah, so what I really like about there's two aspects. One is that you can obviously fit models on the top, and I'm even going to risk it, despite the fact it's not put together. So there's a 15mm model on top, and you can see, I mean, that's a little wooden base. Here's my typical 5p piece, and again, it fits nicely. You could sort of fit half a squad on there if you were trying to hold a building or you wanted to represent that somehow. I'm not sure about the top of the tower. I think the tower might be hollow. And obviously you can't put anything inside unless you left that door off. But even then you're not going to be able to easily remove the roof. So yes, nice bit of kit. But again, I think for anything like this it needs a bit of super detailing around the base. Obviously I'm going to prime it and then I'm going to spray it up. But I'll be adding canisters, gas canisters, maybe some pipe work on the side, and just a little bit more detail to boost it up a bit. Yeah, I mean you couldn't get easier putting this together, and obviously use you want to use white glue, the PVA glue. I use Gorilla Glue, the white glue they do, and it seems to work well. In fact, with PVA glues there is a thinner type of glue that you can get from Foreground. Do it. It's just white glue, but it's just a sort of slightly thinner consistency, and it goes on nice and easy. But I don't know if there's any real difference in quality overall in white glues. It's only a piece of MDF for modelling. It's not like you're holding, you know, it's not like you're sealing the edge of your bath or anything. So here are the other kits. So that's the industrial warehouse, and this is I got two of the industrial warehouses, and then this is the more significant kit. So I'll just open that one. Scroll down. Jeffrey Benedict join. Hello, Jeffrey. So when I was opening that one at the weekend, I didn't have to use my I didn't have to use a blade at all. I mean, typically I do use a blade, but the MDF just popped out of its laser cut panels and didn't require. So they put a simple guide here. This is quite interesting. They're recommending obviously painting everything before you glue it together. And again, that depends on how far you want to go, particularly with this one, because the other one that I was doing, once you've got that front panel in, there's no real need to do anything inside, although you could black it out, couldn't you? You could spray a dark grey or a dark brown inside, just so that if anybody did happen to peer through, that's the only visible way to see inside the small building. But if someone did peer through, they'd just see black, wouldn't they? I don't think you'd need any other detail. And when you're scaling up and you're doing 28mm like these, it is a bit more interesting to make sure the interiors are at least sprayed a dark colour. That might be the case with this large industrial one as well. So I'm now trying to find that second. Don't we love plastic? Yeah. Stick it in a landfill. Leave it for the next generation to deal with. So here we go. Oh, more than one page of instructions for this one. So again, we have a similar tower section to the smaller tower piece. Has a sort of ramped walkway, which again looks good, scaled for 15mm, obviously. And then the main housing area is sort of empty inside. Just looking at it, I think the roof is a separate section, so this would give you that opportunity to maybe put a vehicle or something in. So you could do more detail inside. And the walkway, I'm trying to work that out, but I think the walkway sits inside, does it? Maybe? Or is it on the outside? Checking out again. Tower walkway, no, the walkway's on the outside with the steps down. So here's the pieces. So again, the interesting things like the doors, you can see are well scaled for 15 mil. There's a little 15 mil guy. And this framework will look interesting. That could be done in a kind of a black, or you could do it in that iron oxide colour for interest as well, couldn't you, to make it stand out? And those are the little steps which I'm just popping out by accident that go inside the stair. This looks like the roof with some spare bits of casts in there. Bits of the tower. So these are the window details. So this is more cardboard, and that's going to provide the details inside the window frames. And the door detail there as well. I did wonder about sticking some sort of metal doors on, sort of the Ground Zero Games ones or something, just to make it look a bit bulkier, but those could go inside. And it's got 2 sets of those. And then the sort of roof profiling where the windows for the roof go on. Oh no, that's not right. That's the actual side of the building. A nice vent detail there. You could paint that up in a slightly silvery colour to make it stand out. It's a sort of a vent. And there's the primary base for the whole thing. So that's giving you an idea of how big the whole the footprint is. So yeah, it's 18 centimetres or thereabouts by, I can't see the edge here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, 18 by 15. So that's a reasonable size. Move that out of the way. Go back to the pieces again. I wanted to see whether there's any bits to represent the plastic glass in the top. I don't think there is. So I think you can have empty windows unless you get some bits of your own perspex or something from somewhere in a store, a clear sheet. There's a side panel falling off. No, it doesn't appear to have any. I'm checking inside, apart from the packaging. So yeah, that's interesting. I think you could very easily get some to fit on this top section inside. Just cut a single sheet to fit along that whole area, and then a single sheet inside there, just to get some plastic shine off that area instead of leaving it all open. I mean, you could even crack a few, couldn't you, to make it look a bit run down if you wanted to. And it has some venting down the side as well, air conditioning type exhausts or whatever they are. Yeah, and there's those doors that are the bits that are made with the cardboard. So those could be sort of boosted up if you wanted to get something a bit larger or a bit more sci-fi with raised profile that could sit on the front of these maybe. Again, I mean, once you've built it as a standard, it's probably going to look fine anyway. Yeah. So that's that big set. I don't think I'm going to open up the other ones because there's nothing special about seeing the MDF in there. And now I know the scaling and stuff from these doorways. We're fine as far as the model sort of size goes. And that's a quite tall 15mm model. Obviously then I've got a walker here as well. And even that fits neatly inside the door really. I mean one of the garage doors. So yeah, I mean I've got lots of work to do here, so obviously I'm not going to start now, but the first thing would be to obviously glue these together, or maybe obviously look at the interior, see how much interior spraying I need to do, and then go from there. I'm going to prime them, do the sort of interiors in a darker browny black as shadowed areas, and then I will airbrush the colours on the outside too. And there's some tricks you can do with that when you're airbrushing. There's a really nice Tamiya airbrush colour called Smoke. And if you spray that around the bottom of a building, it is a very transparent black, but it goes on very smoothly, so you can sort of do a gradient of sort of dirt and grime of the black smut along the bottom. A lot of people do that on the SCIFI tanks and vehicles as well. So what I'm going to do in terms of sci-fiing them up, I've got a big box. I don't know if it's going to fit on the table, but I'm going to get it out. So yeah, it's a big old box. I'll tell you the first other thing I'm going to do is fire up a website, Romantic Games. I'll show you the website as well while I'm at it. Alright, so here we go, switching to the web. Just a moment. There we go. So this is, I just did a search for Romantic Games, and they have this really nice set here called the Industrial Accessories. It doesn't really have any other, it just has 2 sprues. As you can see, it's made for 28mm, but these big pipes are completely transferable scale-wise, and by that I don't know if anybody's seen that Battle Angel movie, which I really enjoyed, and has some very good fight scenes in it, but it also has excellent terrain. And when I say terrain, I mean sets, but when you're looking at it as a gamer, you tend to look at it as a terrain piece, and this sort of fits that bill perfectly in that in the movie there's very large sort of industrial piping everywhere. Otherwise it's kind of one of these strange cities that's kind of got a mix of a kind of Blade Runner rundown rubble look, but piping features everywhere and exposed machinery, so I think these would look great. You could use some of these generators on the side or the back of a building. Even though it's 15mm, you don't need to really worry about those screens not being exactly correct. So yeah, that's a nice section. So actually I have those in my box in front of me, so I can, one of the things I can sort of show in amongst other things here. So switch back. Aha. So try to do this without making it disastrous where I drop everything on the floor. So, maybe if I bring that down to here, then aha! So it's right in front of me and I can bring things out step by step. So first off, these are the conveyors from that set. So just to remind you of the set again, you can see that it has, oh, maybe someone's built one a bit bigger. Yeah, no, all the images are the same size. Zooms in. It's not zooming. That's about as useful as you can get. Let's see if one of these has a slightly better zoom in. Oh, well, that gives you the view anyway, but you can see the conveyors on the side of this one that are running around the side of the building, and you can see one of those engine parts. Obviously, with what Mantic have done is they've made these same parts on a set of sprues that they then distribute amongst their different sets. So this one comes with obviously some piping on the side, which they're using for a side panel, not a side pipe on that building, but that's the same piping that you get in the other set that also comes with the conveyors. And you can see some more of the piping along the top of that interior too, so it's all kind of interchangeable. So here's that conveyor belt, and here is a 15mm model on top of the conveyor belt. So I think that's a perfect sort of walkway, and because this is sort of click together kit, it's quite easy to build. It uses it's plastics, it will use a sort of standard Games Workshop or plastic cement glue, so you can make quite a nice kit. So that's the conveyor, that's one small piece of it, but you get quite a lot. In fact, I bought 2 sets of this. I think these might be the ramp pieces, and then that's a piece that can go on a, it's got the holes to allow it to go onto some sort of mounted base, and they have this sort of ramp sections as well, so you can make up a kind of profile. course, you can use them for anything though. Mix and match with any bits of terrain, and you've got a perfect kind of walkway for 15 mil. In fact, you could even put them together. I know it looks like a conveyor, but that could be a gridded walking surface as well. And this is how they come in the kits. So I bought 2 boxes of them, and you can see the pipe rings are in there. You get a set of the conveyors, more bits of pipe, and so rather than spill that one out, I have got one here already with the engine part in 2 sections and a section of the pipe piece. So the engine part, it won't clip together easily. That looks like it needs trimming up or something before it goes together, but you can see size-wise it's big. But you know, again, I used to work for a company that sold engines for ships, and I can tell you now, most of the ships, Caterpillar being one of the main companies that makes these engines, these massive diesel engines for ships, I can say they're actually bigger than that, and kind of look like this strangely as well. So with the shaft running down the middle of them, and they were bigger than this even. So this is probably on. If you wanted a big ship engine in a game, it's on the right path for the right size, even though that has been built obviously for 28 mil terrain. So what was I going to do with that? Well, you know, you could sit it on the side of that. You could put it right on the side of that warehouse building I had there as part of a base layout. Glue it on, spray it up, and again it just makes things look a little bit more sci-fi if you were to rust it and colour it up differently. So the small pipes, they're very interesting. You could do a lot on the side of buildings or just as terrain pieces with these, and they are they actually fit together without glue, but you would obviously do want to glue that. You also might want to trim the edges to get that to fit snugly, although it fits pretty snugly already. So you can see the idea of these is that they have a base section, and then you can sort of pull them together however you wish, really. And there's the rounded conveyor piece just while it's in my hand, so you can see you can make a nice raised round platform. I mean, ideas for this that could work is that building with the warehouse that I had there. You could potentially build a base with this kind of walkway around the whole warehouse exterior, just again as something that you could play from if you were looking for that kind of detailed level of skirmish and wanted to represent the models around the side of it. That's a possibility. And so I'm trying to find some more of the pipes. So the pipe sections are all quite small, but you can see you get a right angle as well for that piece. And again, they would just obviously all go into these. I don't know if they've got anything else that goes on the buildings that takes that same. I'm looking. Oh, there you go. There's something of interest in the pack. So there's a sort of a section end which you can take a pipe into. So you could do one or two things with that. You could find the other section of that, which I don't know where it is, but it's in here somewhere. Or you could bolt that up against the side of a building as if it's sort of the exterior panelling for pipe work to go in and out of a building, whatever kind of material, chemical materials going through there. So yeah, lots of potential opportunities there. And this is the bigger piping. And they've cleverly made it sectional like this, so again every piece can bolt together. That's obviously not the correct piece for there because it's got a side pipe. Let me find a piece that will fit together without dropping it. I think I haven't got the right sides. Oh, there's a nice piece though. Look, there's a oh, that one's fitting together correctly. So you can see some tidy ups needed along the edge. If I can get it into the light. Yeah, there's some nice sort of little bit of trim and clean up on there, but the glue will bring that together nicely. And this one has a gaping hole in there. So again, you could detail that with some oil or something pouring out of there. And the way these pipes fit together is they have these socket pieces. So you either get an end cap with a vent on it, or you get sort of the intermediate piece to allow you to put two pipes together, like this, a ring. So that's only going to give it more strength, isn't it, once that's on there. I'm already sort of starting to put this together without any glue. Nice kit. Rush out and buy it. They don't give me any commission, by the way. They should do, but you know. So my plan is with these, as I was saying, I want to. I don't want to make just one big pipe farm, but I'd rather use these as detailed sections. So on the side of one of those large buildings, I might have 3 sections coming out, and then I might pop it into the ground. If I can get that piece. You know, I might pop it going away into the ground so that you've got the detail. It looks very interesting. It provides cover if you've got models along the side of it, but it's not filling a whole board with a pipe farm. You're just more like you're using it to sort of sci-fi boost something. The other thing is, of course, you could use it underneath some of this platform. As I said, I wouldn't be using this as conveyor. I'd just use that as a standard 15mm platform, and there's enough detail on there to make that look like quite a nice, interesting piece. Just noticed, I think I've got a... Where's that coming from? Potential cable in the way. There it is. Got it. Right, so I got rid of that hanging out there. So yes, all these pieces are rather nice. Let's say you get 2 bags full in each set, and plenty of fun building those. I mean, say that's quite. You can see some smaller sections there as well for the conveyors, sort of end pieces. So I think for the money, that's a very good kit. So as far as this box is concerned, which I shall slightly bring into the frame, it's not going to be in focus, but I've just basically got collected sprues from 15 years or so of gathering bits and pieces, and everything in there from this company is a very interesting one. I think they were Russian, but they did a set of these modular terrain clipped together type, and everything came with the little tiny clips, plus the panelling was actually closer to what you'd use perhaps on 15mm. For the life of me, I can't remember them, but if anybody with any knowledge of this terrain gear will probably know, but they definitely were Russian. I suspect they're still available somewhere, but you just don't hear of them like you used to. So I have some terrain built with that stuff, which I shall grab some. No, this wasn't written. These weren't put together by me, by the way. These I don't know if anybody's familiar with Space Jacker, who has a 15mm sci-fi blog from back in the days when Blogger was the place to go on Google, and he built these and sold me a set that he'd done. He put them on MDF, and this is all using this platform sprue, and as you can see, the pieces are a good size for 15mm, and I use these over and over. So thanks, his real name's Ben. So thanks to Ben Space Jacker for doing that. Although he didn't do them, it wasn't a commission. He just did a sale of them to me, and you can see that they're a good size for 15mm. And even the little ladders and things. I mean, that's not quite size appropriate, is it? But it does the job. And he did these quite creative looking pieces where he used some of these symbols to sort of the anti-crusty symbol on the side, and printed these laser printed and added those on. So that's the kind of, although this is he did the bases originally with this sort of a browner and the green. Oh, that's not visible. well, it's a darker brown anyway, and a green style of flock, and I went over because I was using them on a more desert style board, so I did that. I'm not going to do that for this with these bigger warehouse MDF pieces I'm doing. That's on a piece of plastic. I'm going to do it more city style, sort of grey, sort of rundown city, but there might be some debris and things on there as well. Yes, I say I've got a huge box of this stuff in various states of unclipping, and I'll be using that to sort of panel up and build more walkways or whatever I want to on the scene. It's a bit messy and noisy, sorry about the noise, but here's some other bits and pieces. This is N scale, which is interestingly probably a bit too small really for 15mm, but these are Japanese walls and bits and pieces, N scale. Would I use those? I think I might use bits and pieces too. Bits of the plastic and bits of the walling could be used as a low wall or extra detailing on other buildings. It's always worth having around. That same company, it's Kato I think they're called, they also do these sort of railings. Again, it's N scale, but up against a 15mm model, it's a perfect sort of extra rail. It could go along the side of a building or just to detail out around some kind of urban area. So yeah, those are quite nice from them. Yeah, so I bought a few of those kits back in the past. Are they Kato? I'm trying to look for them. No, these are Green Max, so these aren't Kato. These are N scale Green Max. Yeah, so they did this sort of urban wall sections that you do here, which you could use. Oh, and they do those slightly larger walls, which are good for 15mm. Just looking at that scale there. I do have more significant bits and pieces in there, and these are. This was a Gundam kit. You can see the Japanese writings on the side there again. And they did a warehouse kit, and it's got piping and stairs. And again, because it's Gundam, it's 1/44th, I think. But in the kit, they did do rather nice, large sort of panelled sections like this. And again, if you weren't building it into that warehouse, you could certainly use these as parts of industrial landscape. You could mount, you could cover it with some plastic card, mount a base on there and use it. And I think that's my view. That's certainly what I'm aiming for with this layout, is to use as much of this stuff as I've got. But without overcrowding the table. I do, like I said, with the modular approach, my aim is to try and do as much detail that's playable on without overloading the table, because I've seen some layouts again where people go a bit too far and you end up looking, where can you actually game on that layout? So I'll try and be as conservative as I can with the layout. Oh, just a little bit of detail interest on there. In fact, I shall go to a closer camera view. I was meant to do this earlier with a smaller cam, but yeah, so this was one of the ones that Ben Spacejacker had built, but all I've done is I have gone on and I redid the, oh, that's me briefly on this frame, I redid, if I hold one of these things steady you'll be able to actually see it. I redid the basing by just putting some sand colour in there, but then I used various washes as well, and one of the washes I used was one that has a kind of oil stain effect. It's by Life Colour. So I'll be doing a lot of that around any of the industrial parts to sort of make them look a bit oily. And I think there's a kerosene blue wash that Life Colour also do, which I've put around the top of some of these sections. And that's probably about as detailed as I'm going to get with any of this as well. Like, I mean, Ben did the basic colours and things, but that's another good choice that he's made when he painted these, like this yellow one. Get it out of there. Just the fact that he's done that in a yellow with a wash makes it stand out on the table, because so many of the I mean, they've changed more recently, but a lot of the earlier Games Workshop stuff was it had to be grey, black, Gothic style, or it didn't work for them. And what's nice about this is that it can look a bit more like sort of modern, urban, industrial stuff, rather than just all looking like metal plate. So yeah, Ben did a great job obviously on this, because he's painted the back panel yellow, and then the interior with the silver, and I think that just really sets it off. But he is an artist, so that's why he's got a good eye for that kind of thing. Yeah, so a bit more closer detail on this other piece that he did, so you can actually see it with some models on there. So it's another thing that's great that Ben's done here, is that he's just put these printed from, I think it's either printed on slightly thick card or just laser colour printed, and then varnished them probably slightly, because they feel like they're quite tough, and glued them on, and they just look, that's extra nice detailing to boost the terrain piece really. And that's again taking a tip from him. That's what I'll be doing on the side of some of those industrial buildings, because I want to, I'm going to put a company logo, print that out on there, maybe put some safety signs up around the side of it, and it just draws your eye in, and you're kind of then distracted by that colour and the detail, rather than feeling like the whole thing was one big old warehouse with no name or brand on it. So yeah, it's well worth adding that extra level of detail. Right. What else can I show here? So that's my big box of that stuff. I have more. So this is a slightly smaller box. I'll take that out of the way, and we'll dive in there with the camera actually. So this one, I have some bits and pieces that were half made in the past of that clipped together terrain, and you can see it's had a primer on it, so just bits of old stuff in there. These are always handy. They're 1/35th scale paving stones, granite, and obviously some people will go as far as to put them together as a proper bit of pavement, but as far as 15mm goes, I know they're big, but they do look like very large pieces of masonry, stonework, and you could put them around in a pile or build half a wall or something, so they're useful. In fact, I do have those in 1/72 scale as well, which I've used on some World War I bases to use as sort of fallen stonework, so that's handy. Otherwise, got all sorts of things in here. These I picked up. I took a visit to Tokyo about 4 years ago and nearly broke my ankle while I was there. Spent a long time in the hotel. But for one of the visits out to the electronics district, I picked up a lot of Gundam bits and pieces. So lots of exhausts there to go on their Gundam models. But again, just handy stuff to use for one reason or another. More sort of bits and pieces. What is that? That's a submarine. So no, I'm not going to use that for anything. But say again that in terms of panelling, you could put that on the side of a building. It's not been glued together; it's just held together, or you could use it as a piece of pipework or something. Not sure what scale it is. It's a submarine. It's been tucked away in there forever. Oh, it's an old Star Wars, isn't it? Don't ask me which version. Episode 3 of the remakes. Not Phantom Menace, but again, great panel work. And that's a click together set. But you've got something you could use for solar panels or anything else there. And there's a little R2. So yeah, nice bits and pieces that you can use. This is something. This is from a company called Snapdragon, and this has been it's been left in the garage, and then someone I know that was going to help me build some terrain has sprayed it, but what they didn't do is wash it first. So they've sprayed it with all the fluff included. But yeah, it's a Snapdragon resin piece, very, very heavy, but great for a little industrial section. You could put that on a base, and again put some pipe work coming along the side. You could even stick some pipes going into it. Maybe I'll just scrub that to get the hairs and things off, because it's been primed with the hairs included. So yeah, that's bits of plastic box. I've got more subs there. I don't know what I got all those for, but thought one day I might use them. And then I've got some other more resin related. Hopefully I won't lose my bench to this, because this is a heavy heavy box. So yeah, I've got various bits of resin in here. So these are all from Old Crow, and Jez, who runs Old Crow, his workshop is about 5 minutes from my office at the moment in Cole Shulton. And well, it was a few years ago I popped in, and he just gave me well, he didn't give me, I paid for some of this, I think, paid for all these nice resin bits. Jez, in fact, who runs Old Crow, does works on movies most of the time, and I think that's his kind of bread and butter business, and the side business is doing the 15mm. But because of his expertise in making widgets and things for movies, I think one of the claim to fame, he made Hellboy's gun, and more recently I think that Gravity movie, he did all of the little bits and pieces on the spacesuits. He starts out building the model, and then all the sort of clips and things, he then eventually gets them CNC'd into the right shaped widgety piece. So these are just a box full really of offcuts and miscasts that he did. Some of them you can see that there was originally maybe a bottle cap or something in there before he'd made the resin piece. And again, just on it could go on the side of a building. I mean, that looks like it's part of a vehicle, doesn't it? Oh no, this is one of his tanks that he did. These ones obviously are 6mm scale ships and things, which I should really do something with. A load of 6mm stuff. Oh, sorry, I just whacked the microphone with my face. Oh, some of it very sensible, like ammo case type things. Now this is the kind of bit that I'm interested in for the terrain and the things like that warehouse MDF piece earlier. You've got this kind of grill, and it's an interesting shape. It can paint up interestingly. It looks modern. It doesn't look like an industrial thing from turn of the century, last 19th century. So sit that on the side. It looks like some sort of modern air conditioning unit. Paint it up, weather it, put some colour detail, and then suddenly the building's boosted a bit, isn't it? And those are some kind of 6mm landing craft things. No use for 15mm terrain. And then just these column pieces I like as well. I mean, it's nothing to it. All it is a segmented chunk of smooth, creamy resin. But that could be used for any number of sections on the side of a building again, or a ridge along the top of a building to make it look a little more interesting. And looks like these are display panels. Again, 28mm scale really, but for 15mm it's just a large public display thing. Stick it on the side of a building, put a printout of a screen or something in there, gloss it up, and you've got a public display unit that again makes the just boosts that terrain. You know, if it was on the side of that industrial building, it just makes it look a little bit more interesting. Again, large sort of panelled sections like this, perfect for sort of doing maybe either a bit of a roof somewhere or some other section on the side, or walkway. It looks like a dropship. It's like a 6mm dropship that he did years ago, sort of Concorde style, orbital type aircraft, very smooth. bits of tanks. Oh, looks like someone was... See, look at this. You know, I'll take this knowledge to my grave, which I'm sure some other people that are viewing this maybe know this kind of knowledge, but it's the most quirky, tiny, edge case, nerdy, train spotterist-like detail, isn't it? I know, even though I haven't seen this before in here, that's from a Behemoth tank, I think, from Battletech. And obviously someone asked him to cast them up, or something like that. But that's what I reckon it is. Someone could correct me. But it looks like an early Battletech turret. God knows what that's doing in there. But yeah, I could still sort of incorporate it in some kind of turret-based thing. And then this kind of stuff too. Now that is, you couldn't get more sci-fi building than having exposed sort of pipework and bits and pieces. On its own, it's not much use though, is it? But yeah. So yeah, I won't dig through here. So there's an example. So that's the sort of extra size, larger door that I'd need a pair of them to fit on the side of that warehouse, but that would give that warehouse a very much more sci-fi modern look if I happen to be able to dig two of those out of there. Which I'm not sure I can dig two of those out of there. Oh, there's the side of that thing. I think that's a side from one of his tanks that the flyers that he did, and that sits into the side of the flyer. Again, not much use on its own, but I mean that could look, I mean if you tidied it up, it could look like part of a side of a building. And the classic container, I mean that's going to be great on the top of a building. Again, it's probably scaled for 6mm. I know this piece is from his Old Crow 6mm towers that they did, and that's the top section. So you could sort of stack the towers up as high as you wanted, and then you pop that on top. And obviously with you can sort of boost it up by putting little extra canisters and things on there. So yes, bits of resin I'm going to put all around the side of the base. Hours of fun digging all that stuff out. That's my box entitled Resin Parts. So the one last tip before I sign off. It's now, oh, it's nearly 10:20 and it's a weekday. So yeah, the other tip here is this stuff. This is these are mechas, I think. But yeah, basically, I did a video on YouTube about all of these. They're Ground Zero Games is various different canisters, and yeah, he's got lots and lots of those. But you can't go wrong with a few of these around the edge of a building or on the top of a building. They look like power units. They look like could be any kind of combination of things, either attached to the building, like you could glue that up against the side. It looks like some kind of weird air purifying thing, or just scattered around the terrain. I always remember I took a trip through where was it, Belfast, I think. We came off the ferry from Holyhead to Belfast, and there's like a gas place there, but the kind of gas place that stores the camping bottles. But I wish I'd taken a photo. I didn't take a photo, but this place was full of about 3,000 plus, what did I say, 3,000? Maybe 4,000 or 5,000 plus of these kind of blue, orange, red, the kind of butane or whatever they call it. But they were all nicely rusted to that point where it looked like someone had gone around and with a weathering brush and sort of put little bits of rust and streaks down the side of the blue, the bright blue paint. And it was impressive looking. So I like that one in particular. It looks like a kind of power canister. So that could be used on a building or on the side. Again, painted up in a slightly brighter colour. So yeah, if you pull up, without crashing this, so if you pull something like that up, you could put that somewhere on the side or up inside there. Paint it a slightly brighter colour and it sort of draws your eye and it looks quite interesting. Yeah, so that's a box of all this sort of stowage I've got. I've got some older 15mm kind of ammo crate type things as well. I think this is old Ground Zero games, perhaps. Satellite dish. There's 2 parts. I think it's got some other bit in there as well that it sits in. Yeah, there you go. Sits in that. And that pops on there like so. Yeah, so there's probably more under here. Oh, I've got some vehicles and things which I was going to do a review of soon, and some larger canisters. These I don't think work very well. These are Micro Art Studio, and they are scaled for 28mm for Infinity, the game. And I'm not so sure. I mean, they could work. You could put a pipe going up against the side of it. You could put it up against the side of a building, and it's great terrain cover around the edge of a building for 15mm. But it just looks a bit too too big. Yeah. Oh, so that's an exploration of some of my terrain bits and pieces, and pop that back there. Switches to the wrong view again. I'm a bit parched now. Could do with a drink. I think you're going to see me. Yes. Okay. So thanks very much for listening in. I'll be back again in the next few days, week or so, and start to show some progress on some paint, because with those terrain areas I want to start to put them together. I'll build one of those MDF units and then show you with some of this bits and pieces and gubbins on the side before I paint them up and airbrush them. So thanks for listening in. I'm going to try and stop the stream now. Oh, there might be some more comments. What's the extra comments? Anything? No, but thanks Don, Hugh, Ralph, Abu, Tim, Scott, Andy, and Aris. Oh, hi Aris, how are you doing? And thanks for listening. Goodbye.